From the Telegraph, Labour-run council evicts 200 tenants to cut housing waiting list. Cash-strapped Lambeth tells families to find new homes as backlog worsens. Yeah, people like me have been saying for many years that the second you get a left-wing Labour government in, essentially you are guaranteeing that the only people that are going to be happy from that day forward are the lazy, the career welfare recipient, and the owner of the off-licence round the corner from Mick Philpott's house, because all they do is throw money at the dregs of society whilst attacking working class people who actually go out and do a bit every day. This story is just another example of that. And one more thing, obviously, mind-melting left-wing hypocrisy. The one characteristic in which they are blessed with it in boundless supply. Intelligence, common sense and pragmatism, they've got none of that. But juvenile optimism and staggering hypocrisy, they have an unending supply of that. Because here's what they were saying before they got elected. From The Independent in November 2024, landlords rush to force out tenants ahead of Labour's no-fault eviction ban. Starmer the farmer harmer has promised to outlaw Section 21 no-fault evictions, with the ban expected to be implemented by next summer. So, to sum up, the ban for you, if you happen to own a property that's now being slowly demolished by drunk, chain-smoking chavs with appalling personal hygiene, you can't evict them, but if the Labour government wants to do it, they're more than welcome to do so. And I'll give you one guess who they're evicting and who they're moving in. Any ideas? The local authority, which last year blamed its deficit on housing, said more than 4,700 homeless families are currently living in unsuitable and expensive temporary accommodation, 1,300 more than 2 years ago. Yeah, so we all know what's happening here, don't we? We all know what's happening here. Hard working, they'll be like couples, no kids, both working hard, trying to save enough for a mortgage and a deposit on a house. And lo and behold, get out, unceremoniously threw out on the streets to make room for 23 Albanians that multiply like wet gremlins. Fantastic news, but at least Labour are consistent. Yeah, consistently awful for anyone that works for a living. Okay, let's read the story in full and then I'll give you some facts at the end of it. Obviously, Lambeth Council is cash-strapped on account of the fact 1 million people moved to the UK last year. And funny old thing, they need buildings to live in. Stories by Ruby Hinchcliffe and was published yesterday. A Labour-run council is evicting more than 200 private tenants because of its spiralling waiting list. Lambeth Council said tenants were being evicted to house families living in temporary hotels and bedsits, an expense that costs the borough £28 million a year. The local authority, which blamed its £70 million deficit on housing, said more than 4,700 families are living in unsuitable and expensive temporary accommodation. Homes for Lambeth, a private company owned by the council, has been letting out homes across 5 estates to private tenants at market rents for almost a decade. But the council has now reclassified the properties, allowing them to be used for temporary accommodation. And as a result, the private tenants living in those homes, made up of around 160 families, have been served with Section 21 notices by the council. Yep, and Angela Rayner was on record in the aforementioned Independent story saying quite aggressively, you can't evict people for no reason, it's disgraceful, we're going to ban that. So yeah, as usual, mind-melting hypocrisy. Banned for you, but not for the Labour government. Makes loads of sense, doesn't it? And it's a very Labour plan, that, isn't it? Making working people homeless to house the homeless. I'm from a rough northern town. I never knew any normal people who go to work, whether they were couples, single or with families, who were living in state-funded bedsits. These people who are going to be placed in these houses are going to be there at the expense of the taxpayer, and they're throwing out working people as usual. It's disgraceful. And today on gov.uk, Angela Rayner's on a press release saying that this new law to protect renters is one step closer to becoming a reality. The government's landmark Renters' Rights Bill returns to Parliament today from the Right Honourable Angela Rayner. For far too long, working people and families have been at the mercy of a fickle and unfair rental market, faced with outrageous upfront costs and struggling to find a safe place they can truly call home. Yeah, you know why you can't truly call it home? Because you don't own it. It's not your house, is it? And listen to this laundry list of ridiculous fictional reasons about how the only reason anyone uses a Section 21 notice to throw someone out of an house is because, well, crying babies.
So a landlord, at the end of the day, a landlord has to know they can get their property back quickly and efficiently without being several £1,000s in debt.
But doesn't a tenant and a renter need to know that they've got a home that is secure for them as well? That if they raise a concern about something that's wrong with the property, they're not going to get issued with a Section 21 notice, or because they suddenly lose their job and they're in receipt of benefits that they're going to get a Section 21 notice, or they're suffering domestic abuse, or they've had a baby and their child's crying and they're going to get a Section 21 notice. Surely there has to be a balance within that.
There does have to be a balance, but I'm just giving you the facts, okay? The facts are that if you interview now 100 landlords and you can only get a tenant out on a Section 8, I'm pretty sure that the majority will be fleeing the market.
So to sum up, first things first, let's get the ginger mog off the screen, shall we? That's better. Yeah, so to sum up, if you work for a living, Labour will do everything they can to screw you over. They don't like people that work for a living, because if you work for a living and you've got your own money, you're confident and you're quick on your feet and you can look after yourself. What they want is people in the pocket of the state, terrified that the state are going to take the benefits off them. They want people that are obedient and will do as they're told. That's why they pander to people that don't work for a living and constantly harass people that do. If you're one of the people in Lambeth, I'd love to hear from someone who's just been served a Section 21 notice that Labour said they were going to ban, because it's all right when they do it. That's essentially what they're saying there. Section 21s have got to be banned for landlords, because heaven forbid a person who owns a house wants to live in it. But they can do it, because they're the government, and hypocrisy knows no bounds for these people. And I know that some landlords can be wankers. I know that. I've had to live under landlords for years. The whole of my working life in the UK, I didn't own my house. Some of them were shocking, although I will say some of them were, how can I put this diplomatically? When I was working in Nottingham, needless to say, I was living in the flat of a land baron, a certain Mr. Ali, who looked to me, just my initial appraisal of the situation appeared to be that he was probably living in a council house and then renting out all the other properties he had. Certainly seemed that way to me. Some landlords are shocking, but at the end of the day, you have to have the ability, if you own a house, to get rid of problem tenants. And because the government's made it so difficult, as usual, because they always side with the worst of humanity, because they've made it so difficult to get rid of problem tenants, your backup plan was a Section 21. So you just say, oh yeah, we're going to move the family in a couple of months' time, so sorry, you'll just have to leave. That was the backup plan. If they get rid of the Section 21 for normal landlords, no one's going to rent anything out. So as usual, they're doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing if you've got a housing crisis. Instead of promoting building and promoting private landlords to confidently enter the market and let people live in their houses, they're going to lock up shop, aren't they? If you're rich and you've got 3 houses, you can afford to not rent them out. But what you can't afford to do is have 23 Somalians turn your house into a cesspit. You definitely can't afford to do that. You'll cut your nose off to spite your face, won't you? I know I would. So, as usual, the Labour government are doing the exact opposite of what they should be doing if they want to solve the housing crisis. And they're throwing working people out to make room for the dregs of society, as usual. But that's just my opinion. If you think Mick Philpott was a splendid father, Shannon Matthews' parents were fine, upstanding members of society, and Fred West was just misunderstood because you voted for Labour, please let me know in the comments. I love reading the gibberish you type. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Toodle pip.